Where's Sarah?
I'm here.
Here you are. I mean this in the most loving and respectful way, but I think the best way to describe your experience is that you're a glutton for punishment. You've taken on some of the hardest, I think, revenue generating models that I've seen for a bunch of high growth startups, and most recently an AI company, Copy, who we just saw the announcement, I think, less than a couple days ago that you successfully were part of an acquisition there. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Um, but you come into these high growth environments, obviously with very little, finance infrastructure, and you come in as the leader to help lay the groundwork. And um, I know because of that, you have high expectations for the partners and tools that you bring on, and also for the team members. And I'd be really curious for like, what's your approach for getting audit ready for these really immature organizations and getting them transactional ready, whether it's for an audit, whether it's for an acquisition like Copy, and would love to share some of those insights with the audience.
Yeah, so when I come into an organization, you're right. They typically don't have a lot of infrastructure from a finance or accounting perspective, and so since I've done this so many times, I do carry a lot of baggage or experience with me. And my first focus is like, what's the first thing that I'm going to have to deal with? Is it investors? Is it an audit? Is it an acquisition? And then I try to prioritize what is most important to the audience that's going to receive it. And as I'm preparing to address different issues and clean up historicals and all of that, I'm always thinking that I don't ever want to do the work again. I'm not a fan of repeat work. I don't like to do the same thing over and over again. So I want to be audit ready when I'm determining what I'm going to work on, who are my partners going to be, what kind of team am I looking for. I really do focus on that. And in many cases, at a smaller company, well, even larger companies that are pre-IPO, the first focus is what's our real revenue numbers? What's our ARR? What's our real revenue numbers? Is our GAAP revenue booked right? So I'll come in and look at, how things have been done in the past, and I'll figure out that it wasn't right 100% of the time. And then, and then it's what resources do I have? Like what's my budget? What can I do? Can I hire help? Can I get all the fancy systems? Can I, and so that's kind of what I think through when I'm determining what to focus on first. With Copy AI, it was a bit of focus on everything because they had some rena CFOs that really kind of didn't do anything, and then they had some bookkeepers that tried to do their best, but frankly they weren't communicated with a lot, and so they didn't always understand what goes in COGS, what goes in OpEx. They were never given a tool or permission to search out a tool. Not that I would have wanted this at all, to do revenue recognition and things like, billing and collections. They weren't even touching. So I came in to an entirely messy balance sheet. I knew was wrong. In Copy's case, I knew that they were pulling. We used Stripe for checkout, and we have two motions. We have a PLG motion and we have an enterprise motion, a sales-led motion. So the company started out as PLG back in 2020, and the bookkeepers had kind of gone in and downloaded the native Stripe reports, not with RevRec turned on or anything like that. They were literally downloading subscription data and then invoice data and payment data. And I walk in and I've got all these crazy negative balances on my AR aging. I know that with the volume of data based on past experience, you simply can't get revenue recognition right without automating something. And so that was kind of what I looked at first, and then I focused on, you know, where do I go from here? And luckily enough for me, I had actually been down this road before many times. In some instances, really big companies with complex things like on-prem and hybrid and cloud. But you know, a company that I was at not too terribly long ago, when I walked in the door, they had no RevRec tool in place, and they had many, maybe even more than Scott spoke of. We had so many merchant processors where we were processing payments through. We had a billing system that didn't take care of, that didn't report disputes. So like bookings were always off. And when I was at that company, we went down a lot of paths. We looked at different systems that would handle billing and RevRec. And ultimately, like, our engineering team didn't have time to redo our checkout flow and change everything that we had in place. So I did go out and I talked to different providers that offered RevRec. The first one that I tried was connected to the billing system, but again, that billing system doesn't take care of disputes. And when you've got a large volume of disputes in a B2C type environment, that's not a good answer. You're never going to get through an audit, and your revenue is never going to be right. So I ultimately did a demo with a few providers, and selected one, and then we proceeded to spend over 1.5 years trying to implement it. And they couldn't handle all of the data. Like, our volume was very, very high. Again, the number of merchant processors and the need for order to cash reconciliation on top, like, just not just RevRec, but order to cash reconciliation becomes very, very difficult and very painful when you have that many processors for payments. Went through some great demos, really thought this was going to be an answer for me, and it bombed. I ended up having to turn to a data analyst and our data engineering team and get everything hooked up. We couldn't spend any more money on subscriptions. We couldn't. There wasn't like a trial period or a pilot that they offered for me. Like, I locked in for 1 year. And then when it didn't work out the first year, it was, well, we'll give these 3 free periods. We're almost there. And it never got there. So I did actually end up using a BI tool, an analyst, and data engineering to pull together reconciliation processes, RevRec processes, deferred revenue waterfalls, and all of those things. When I arrived at Copy, those individuals, engineering, data, machine learning, they didn't have time for me. Like, we have so many PLG customers, and then we're really focused on the enterprise business. So that wasn't an option. And I just went ahead and thought, okay, how do I get this done as fast as humanly possible and get it right? So the first thing that I did was flip on Stripe RevRec to see. Again, I had demoed this and gone through it at another company, so I didn't know that it was going to meet my expectations, but I turned it on, and then I waited, and nothing happened. I had negotiated pricing with them. They had told me that they had a support team to support the revenue process. That was not the case at all. They ended up coming back and saying, oh, we don't offer that anymore. We actually, here's a Discord channel, and you can just contact our engineers, directly. So meanwhile, I'm still waiting on data while I'm figuring all of this out and doing these negotiations, and nothing is showing up on my Stripe dashboard. Nothing. Because we have freemium, and we also charge for self-serve or PLG, we have about 39 million transactions in total, including freemium. So I think Stripe was probably processing through all of those as well, but I got frustrated because I needed to do something. I needed to do something fast. I needed to do something that I could rely on and book before I had time to go through reconciliation processes and things like that. So I sort of felt stuck with Stripe RevRec, with the lack of support, um, the lack of data showing up on my dashboard. Um, and it was very, very, very frustrating. So, again, I'm still looking for something fast, something that's repetitive, automated, that I don't have to have my hands in too much. And just the timing of getting responses from Stripe on, what's happening here? How do I manage through this? How do I manage through that? Engineering on the Discord channel sends us back to the support channel, who can't tell me anything that I can't figure out myself within Stripe. So there I end up I need another solution. So I reached out to Cody on your product team because I had worked with him previously, and I said, I need help, and I need help fast. And that was a pretty pivotal moment for me, because then you and I connected, and you were able to get online with me, and I talked you through the fact that we had a mess of data. Like, I discovered that well, I'll start by saying this. There wasn't a finance person in place, obviously. So Stripe had a bunch of failed transactions that were never written off. So hence my AR aging being a terrible mess. And I walked you through scenarios that I knew were issues, right? Like the volume of $0 invoices, the fact that we had commingled PLG and enterprise. So I had PLG data from the end of 2020, and then in 2023, when the enterprise motion started, they literally had solutions consultants sending out the billing, and so that was all commingled. Tons of SKUs. Everybody would just make up a SKU every time they went to bill an enterprise customer, and then I'd gone to Stripe and asked, how do I exclude these enterprise invoices? How do I take care of these failed transactions? How do I do these things? And they didn't have an answer for me. And when I came to HubiFi, you guys really were able to listen to my data issues and understand the root of the problem that I had, versus just plugging it in and saying, we can fix it all for you. So meanwhile, I will say I did leave Stripe on and let them complete the processing during the 30-day trial. And then when it finally finished processing, I don't know, 7 days later, you guys had already had data over to me. You had excluded my $0 invoices so that you could process it faster. You actually helped me exclude, like literally physically helped me exclude my enterprise invoices. So that gave me a chance to know that I wasn't going to have a bunch of commingled revenue and things like that. So that was kind of what happened at the get-go. When my Stripe reporting showed up, of course, I've got all these failed invoices I'm asking, and there were thousands and thousands of them, $2.5 million worth maybe. And I went to Stripe and I was like, can't we bulk adjust these and like write them off as uncollectible? And the answer was, no, Sarah, you will have to go do that manually. When I was expecting, yeah, we can write a script for that if you give us a list. So there wasn't the support that I needed, and I then sort of hammered in on HubiFi, and we went through. You guys, I think, had my data up in how long? 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, we got in a little late. Stripe had a 3-4 week head start, but yeah, we worked fast, and We have built the infrastructure for the purpose of RevRec and accounting teams, so we were able to sync the most amount of data in 48 hours than we ever synced, and then we were able to present to you at least the first cut to get feedback, and then start working on the accounting policies and really iron down exactly what you needed for your financials with our configs.
Yeah, and I think we have about 400,000 transactions that you guys processed for us. So it was not a small amount of data. I was in a huge hurry because we were publishing financials, and after having the discussions and understanding, like, how are things mapped through HubiFi versus the way that I would have booked them, which there weren't really very many differences, just a couple of preferences on my end that we were able to remap. But it was, I trusted the data based on a few tests and things like that. We did not do a full UAT initially before I published those numbers. I literally took the HubiFi numbers and published them. And then we went back, and I have a consultant helping me out part-time. And we went back and laid out all of the UAT plans and ran through all of that. And I will have to say that we really didn't have very many adjustments that we had to make. The one thing that we ran into that I didn't know about, because Stripe's reporting is it's there. You can download reports, but you can't get to everything that you want. And I remember panicking when we tried to reconcile the cash payouts and we tried to do it as of January 2024, because that was the period that we booked our full true up. Because I didn't want to mess with, where we'd already reported sales tax and things like that. So when we went to reconcile that, we had all of these things that fell out, and I came to you with a couple of examples, and I said, I don't know what to do about these. I don't know what they are. I can't see them in Stripe. How do I make sure that we're recognizing the revenue? And you took the couple of examples that I have provided and came back and told me that early on we had a lot of orphan payments in Stripe, and you were able to do a query and provide a report to me really quickly. And then we were able to move on and get that reconciliation. So it would have been, I would have understated revenue for about 250K or so, because I didn't know about these orphan payments, and Stripe only works off of invoices. So it was never going to recognize them at all. But as we kept running into things, I found that we were able to rely on you guys to come back to us and help us with answers. And one of the things that was really important to me, again, like I always go back to, I don't want to rebook things. I want to be audit ready. I can get down into the detail. I can get down to the invoice level. I can look up a specific invoice. I can run a report. I can do anything that I need to do and get to audit level financials to support my deferred revenue, to support my rev rec, and all of those things that are really critical for an audit that they're just not there in Stripe. It's got beautiful reporting. It's got a beautiful dashboard. It's wonderful, but you can't click in and drill down. And I spent 6 years in audit myself. And I also worked I really started out my career in public companies. So after I left audit, all I did was work with auditors. And I've never met an auditor, including myself, who would just take a revenue waterfall and an entry and say, yeah, that's good. I'll take that. No, I got to have a detail of invoices. I'm going to make a selection. I'm going to recalculate the revenue. I'm going to recalculate your deferred revenue. I'm going to do or today they probably push it through a system and use some AI. But back in my days, that was not what was going to happen. But nonetheless, like, you still have to start with detail. It's really critical.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, the things that stands out to me, I think, from that experience is like I think Stripe is an excellent tool. We've got a partnership with Stripe, particularly on the billing and the payment side, and we recommend them all the time. The difference is just from a design perspective, right? Where the folks at our company, we worked with folks like you who educated us on the requirements for years, and from a technology perspective, serve those folks to say, hey, there's a very specific set of requirements around the auditability and the lineage of every transaction, the completeness and accuracy checks to make sure that you got everything before you can trust the numbers. And that's really what it's all based on, is that foundation of trust. So that way you can say, okay, I can prove that I know I can trust this because the built-in recons, and I can test any scenario and drill in. Okay, now I can move on that I've proven that I can trust this, and go back to running my team into the next three fires that I have to fight. So, and that's our goal in the partnership, is just to help arm you with trustworthy numbers in a way that you can see or correct self-evidently. And again, straight from a billing and payment perspective, I think exceptional operational tools, but then those accounting requirements are just different. And so that operational tool is not going to be able to meet them. The other thing that you said that was interesting, I think, uh, you have this concept of contracts and invoices and payments, and then even disputes. Those are not the same objects or events in a business. And we have different relationships between them can have different accounting implications. And when you think about modeling things as a contract, which is how you're going to identify that with a customer for 606, did I bill or did I not bill that? Did I get paid or did I not get paid? Did the payment get disputed? And all of these things correlate back to like the collectability of the, not only the invoice, but then the contract at that point in time. And therefore there's proration logic, and you're like, hey, this is no longer collectible. So we're gonna no longer consider this as deferred revenue at this point. And those are the nuances that we were working through with you. That was exciting to see your eyes light up, and we're like, okay, yeah, there's the initial like vanilla build that we'll do with assuming assumptions, and then you got a chance to say, okay, here's the policies that actually apply to copy AI. And then we took that 48-hour first cut that was the 98% of the way there, and then you got to really redesign your accounting policies. And then within like 2 weeks, it was all right, we're going to fully restate 5 years of financials and
Yeah.
millions of records, and set you off in the right direction to go close big acquisitions.
Yeah, it was really, really critical, and it continues to be, right? Because now I can close out the PLG revenue in hours, not days. Nobody's downloading a bunch of random reports and trying to do a bunch of VLOOKUPs to figure out like, what does this amount that got paid or didn't get paid, like what subscription and what time period does it connect to, and are we taking care of refunds properly? And there's just so many things that the native Stripe like billing and payment system, you can get the reporting and you can do all of those things, but it is not meant to download those reports and then try to manually calculate your revenue. Like it's just asking for it.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
you can you can do it.
you
You have
can,
the
but
ability to do it. It's
it's
just not a
not.
good use of your team's time. And yeah,
But the accuracy is off too. I mean, maybe it was the people that were handling the revenue prior to me, but my numbers changed significantly when I automated revenue recognition versus another team trying to download the different reports and do. I think because of our volume, because of some of the things that got missed when Stripe was set up initially, no write-off was set up if something failed multiple times or we passed 30 days or whatever. So we just had all this data hanging out there that you can't, like, it's really hard to manually manipulate all of that and get
totally.
it right. So
Yeah, the
um,
high volume is a special requirement in and of itself for sure.